This is ABTV, Animal Bites Television. For animal lovers, by animal lovers.
Take a look at this amazing lavender albino reticulated pythons. Typically, when we're looking at this beautiful living art like this, we don't think about what is the makeup behind it. Well, the fact is that the color and pattern of these amazing animals all is about what type of pigment they have. So this week, it's all about the building blocks that make up such gorgeous creatures.
My name is Brian Barczyk. I'm no zoologist, just a guy with a passion for animals. And that passion often takes me on animal adventures around the world.
This week we'll talk about how pigments make up the beautiful colors and patterns of the reptiles we love so much. You're watching Snake Bites. Pigments are chemical compounds responsible for the color in a range of living substances that occur in the organic world. Pigments absorb the light that they receive and so reflect only certain wavelengths of visible light that makes them appear colorful. Reptiles contain three kinds of highly branched color cells called chromatophores. These chromatophores occur in three layers. The top layer is generally made of xanthophores, bearing yellow pigments. The middle layer includes iridophore, the iridescent pigment that reflects light. And the bottom layer has melanophores, which is black or brown melanin. For the most part, the combinations of these pigments is what's responsible for the beautiful colors and patterns of reptiles and amphibians. But I want to dive deeper into it, so let's get started with melanin. Melanin is a broad term used for a group of proteins that are found in most living organisms. Ironically enough, arachnids seem to be void of melanin. Now, melanin is actually produced by the oxidation of an amino acid called tyrosine, and it's responsible for this beautiful black color like this Mexican black king. Melanin is really gorgeous, but let's talk about the layers of melanin. We talked about tyrosine. I want to show you an albino that is called tyrosinase positive. When it comes to T-positive albino animals, the T-positive actually stands for tyrosinase positive, just like this absolutely gorgeous T-positive Nelson's milk snake. Now, tyrosinase is an enzyme that helps synthesize melanin. In the case of a T-positive albino snake, what you have going on is the lack of ability to synthesize the melanin, but the ability to continue to synthesize the tyrosinase. And that tyrosinase is basically what gives it that purplish or brownish hue that makes it so gorgeous. Now, with a real albino, which is really an amelanistic animal, it's lacking all of this. So let's take a look at an example of that. So my sweetheart Sunshine here happens to be a true albino or an amelanistic animal, meaning that it's lacking all of the black pigment or all of the melanin, including the tyrosinase. Now, what's interesting about albinos is that they might be lacking the black pigment, but certainly a girl like Sunshine here is a lot of yellow. Now, the yellow is actually xanthophores. So let's get into xanthophores and the lack of xanthophores. We certainly see yellow pigment or xanthophores in the albino snakes like Sunshine or an albino ball python, but in this case it's a banana calking, and you can see how much yellow it has in it. This yellow pigment is what they call xanthophores. Now, in the case of a banana calking, it's what they call polymorphic, which means that we're breeding to reduce the amount of melanin and increase the amount of xanthophore, and over time, continuing to breed the most yellow animals together will continue to bring out more and more yellow animals. Now, what's interesting about xanthophores is that there's a big craze in the designer morphs to take the yellow out, which they call axanthic. So let's go take a look at a couple examples and one true example of what axanthics actually are. Now, when it comes to an axanthic animal, it's lacking the yellow pigment or the xanthophores. An axanthic pinstripe is a perfect example of a true axanthic animal. And what I mean by that is a lot of axanthic animals are lacking the red pigment as well, or the erythrophores. With the pinstripe axanthics or the axanthic ball pythons, they are truly just lacking the xanthophores. So what happens is that as babies, they're relatively silver and black, but when they get older, they start to get a little more brown. That's where the red pigment comes in. I want to show you what I'm talking about right now. So here's a perfect example of an older axanthic pinstripe. And as you can see, when it was a baby, it was really silver. Now that they've gotten to adults, they look a little bit more brown, still a little bit more faded than what you would see a normal pinstripe, but certainly not that silver and black as babies. And again, that's because that erythrophore, the red pigment, starts to come out. I want to take a look at some animals that are lacking both the yellow and red pigments right now. An anearthristic Brooks King is a perfect example of an animal that is lacking both the red pigment, erythrophores, and the yellow pigment, the xanthophores. As a matter of fact, there's a handful of snakes like the Kenyan sandboas that have the exact same mutation. For some reason, when they're lacking the red, they're also lacking the yellow. I joked around a while ago and said I wanted to call them axanthoristic. It's kind of combining both the lack of red and the yellow. But the truth is that this animal is not that unique. Again, quite a few axanthic or anearthristic animals happen to be lacking both animals. And for whatever reason, whoever names them just happens to name them either anearthristic or axanthic, whichever they may prefer. Now again, the erythrophores, which is the red pigment, is really something that you see a lot in the milk snakes in particular. That's what makes up this beautiful red pigment like that. Again, that red pigment is something that just jumps out at you, and it's really one of the most gorgeous of all of the pigments, in my opinion, of snakes. But there's another pigment that's very, very crucial to what most snakes look like, and that's called iridophores. Let's go ahead and take a look at those. Iridophores are the pigment that causes that iridescent sheen in animals, and there's no animal that's more apparent than with the Brazilian rainbow boas. As a matter of fact, the rainbow name came from the fact that when you look at a rainbow boa, you typically see that rainbow iridescence in them. This is where it gets a little tricky. In a typical green frog, light penetrates into the iridophores, which act as mirrors to reflect and scatter mostly blue light into the xanthophores above them. The xanthophores contain yellow pigment and act as yellow filters, so the light escaping to the skin surface appears to be green to our eyes. If a frog lacks the yellow pigment, blue light scatters back and the frog appears to be bright blue. Iridophores do not synthesize pigments, but reflect and refract colors. Let's talk about color change in chameleons. Chameleons do not change color. Their skin contains the chromatophores we've been discussing, and a chameleon has the ability to expand or contract their color cells to change color. The melanin in the inner layer can move closer to or further away from the skin surface, allowing it to blend with, blot out, or intensify color from other cells. Lastly, I want to talk about leucophores, which is the pigment that causes the solid white snake or the leucistic animals. It's such a beautiful mutation, and it's basically just a solid white animal. So I kind of hope that you guys have a little bit better understanding when you're looking at a gorgeous animal and you're wondering, why is it so beautiful? It all has to do with that pigment and how it's distributed throughout its color and patterns. As always, I was Facebooking and tweeting my way through it, so make sure to follow me over at SnakeBytesTV and on Instagram at SnakeBytes.tv. Until next week, you've been watching Snake Bites.
Hi, I'm Peter Birch, an Aussie bloke who loves wildlife. My respect for nature started when I was a young boy in rural New South Wales. Since then, it's exploded into an obsession. New episodes only on AnimalBytesTV.